Okay, I think we should be talking here. Yes, 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 yes. Well, I can hear me. Hey, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes, yes, yes. No, yes, yes. No sound. So it should be on. I don't know why. You're right. How's that? No, not silent meditation night. Hopefully that's better. Can you get me now? Is that good? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Let's get back here one more time. My apologies. You know, these things happen every now and then. Yes. Okay, we're good. All right. Liftoff. What's happening, everybody? Let's see. Silence is purple. I dig this purple light, man. You know, it's the purple revolution, and I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back. That's what we're involved in. This is a color revolution. I've been talking about it for a while now, and it is coming to fruition. I have been talking about this since 2016, which was the basically the day that Donald Trump won the presidency of the United States of America, defeating Hillary Clinton. And when Hillary Clinton finally showed up the next day, I will show you what she was wearing. Let's see. Give me 1 second here. Okay, here we go. I don't need to actually play the actual video, but I am going to show you what was going on here, and you can have a look and see what I'm talking about. All right, so here we go. This was the day after. Obviously, visibly upset. And what we see here is we see the code, right? This is the code. This is when they were letting everybody know that there was going to be a revolution. This was the color revolution, and the color's purple. And there's Bill Clinton with his purple tie. I guess Tim Kaine didn't get the memo, which doesn't surprise me. So they came out, and Hillary was actually acting quite pious. And she was, I think, even quoting scripture. You know, if Hillary had ever decided that she wanted to become a televangelist, I think she probably could have pulled it off. Because as we know, televangelists aren't as squeaky clean as they seem. Would have been a perfect role for her in some ways. Although she might have been the wrong Abrahamic faith, perhaps. But this was the color, and they were letting everybody know at this point what was happening. When I saw it, I knew what they were up to. The Purple Revolution. Okay. Now, it's important to also note that this concession speech took place right on the heels of the election. And that day was 11/10. The election itself was held on 11/9. And it was, Trump really kind of won on 11/10, but the election itself was on 11/9. So this is basically the day after, right? This is the day after. It was at 11:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, after she had gotten her head clear and was totally shit-faced, apparently, and pissed off because she didn't win the election. And I really do think it was imbalanced, and it was close, and there was probably deals being made on the side, which is why it took so long to announce this thing. But the important date to note is the 11/9 date, because we're coming back to that date tomorrow. And the 9th of November is a day that will go down in history, infamy, and I'll show you why. It's the inversion of 9/11. So we know that, the inversion of 9/11. And I'll show you what was going on there. So one of the things that happens on the 9th of February, November 9th, is the United States got possession of Pearl Harbor, which was somewhat interesting. And it is really the back end of the end of the Russian Revolution. It's really kind of the final day. So if I type in Bolshevik Revolution here, it begins to wind down on the 7th, which is when Joe Biden declared victory, by the way. It was on the 7th, which was yesterday, 7/11. Or 11/7. So here we go. I'll show you guys. So they called it the October Revolution. It went on for a while. Like the Russian Revolution just didn't start in October, it ended in November. But it was on 7 November 1917 that it really started to hit, and then on 11/9, it was pretty much over. Right. So Biden calls for victory on the 7th of November, which is the actual date, like the landing spot. Clinton, the election took place on 11/9 in 2016. So we have 11/9 coming back tomorrow, and that'll be the 4-year period from when Trump ran, and then between now and actually tomorrow, and then we have the 10th, and I think the 11th is Veterans Day. So we're coming up on some really interesting days just in terms of their numerical import. So tomorrow will be the inversion, 9/11, 11/9. Yesterday was November 7th, and this is the sort of the beginning of the end date of the Bolshevik Revolution right here. And it had started prior to that, right? It had really started getting its momentum here in February, and went on for a few years. And went on for what didn't just happen overnight. Really started right after the Tsar came back from World War I, where he took massive losses in World War I. And while he was away, of course, the Bolsheviks got in and started to take care of business. So on November 7th, 1917, the coup d'etat went down in history as the October Revolution. The interim government was toppled, the Soviets seized power, and Russia later terminated the Triple Entente military alliance with France and Britain for Russia. It was effectively the end of the war. So for them, World War I really draws to a close here when the Tsar Alexander, the Romanov, basically capitulates. And what happens thereafter is quite interesting, because it's the Russian military, specifically the Navy, which fires the signal shot of the revolution. And it's the Navy who sides with the Bolsheviks, and they decide that they're done. They don't want the Tsar and the Tsaress to be a part of their life anymore. So it's getting the Navy and getting the military to be a part of the revolution was a pretty essential step here. And then they have this guy named Kerensky, and Kerensky has this kind of interim government. And Kerensky has a deal with Lenin that they're going to share power. And that's, of course, not what Lenin has in store for Kerensky and the provisional government. And when they basically figure that out, Kerensky knows he's fucked. It's lights out, and they're gone. They're gone. They're eliminated. They're removed. And this is what the Bolsheviks do. This is what the Bolsheviks who become communists. This is what they do. So on 20 December 1917, the Cheka was created by Lenin's decree. These are the beginning of the Bolsheviks' consolidation of power over the political opponents. The Red Terror began in September 1918, following a failed assassination attempt on Lenin. The French Jacobin Terror was an example for the Soviet Bolsheviks. So we see a continuum from the French Revolution to the Soviet Revolution to where we are now, or the Russian Revolution. So with the hammer and the sickle, of course, becomes a coat of arms of the Soviet Union, and everything gets nationalized. They basically take everything. And after that, it is the 100-year march from 1920 to 2020, and we looked at that on the Friday show. So we can see sort of what happens here. Petrograd, Minsk, Novograd, Ivanova, Voznesnsk, and Tartu, they all fall. And all these cities eventually fall. And these were key cities right here. Petrograd, of course, is big. It's big. And then finally on November 15th, what we call Moscow, known as Moscow falls. And all these other places would eventually fall, right? Boom. One by one by one by one by one. They would just go through and keep rolling all the way up through November 18th. So even though, February 1918, so even though this 11/7 day is significant, and it's quite significant, it's quite significant. It doesn't necessarily, it's not like you had a hard stop in a hard new beginning. It doesn't really work that way because they keep going. And this is essentially what we're facing. This is what we're facing right now. And I've been talking about this for a while, and it's upon us. The color revolution is upon us. And Hillary Clinton absolutely signaled, what the color is going to be. And they have essentially used every single tactic that the color revolutions in Central Europe and Eastern Europe, all the way going through the Middle East, where they were trying to overthrow Egypt, which was not quite successful, but they overthrew a few other countries in what was it, 2010, 2011. So the color revolutions were started by a guy named Gene Sharp. He's an Aquarian. And he created the Bible for the color revolutions. So one of the things that they wanted to make sure, or one of the key planks of the ideology, is that they have to be kind of lively, right? And they have to involve youth, and they have to have a very, rigorous spirit and have almost a game-like atmosphere in some ways. So they didn't want to make, overthrowing a country boring by any stretch. And a lot of times, like if you were to go to Occupy Wall Street during the first, when it first happened in New York City, and I was there during the first week checking it out. And that's exactly what they were doing. They were playing drums. They had a drum circle. They were doing the call and response chanting. I mean, Occupy Wall Street was not a thing in and of itself. What it was an exercise. They were working things out. Occupy Wall Street was never supposed to succeed. That was not the goal. The goal of Occupy Wall Street was to figure out how those things worked, to perfect what they were doing sort of in real time while they were doing it, but also move it forward and then consolidate and distill all the effective tools that they were able to craft and again, I'd use the word perfect. They're using them now. And so part of what they were really trying to work out with the Occupy Wall Street piece was this idea of the color revolution. That it wouldn't just be, like some sort of boring exercise in polemic and dialectic. That, it would be tribal, it would be primal. And they certainly have that now, but they've added a few twists, right? They've added terror. Occupy Wall Street was, it was a lot of things, but it wasn't a terror event. Well, they've added the terror part now. So they've brought the Bolshevik tactics and they've moved those forward, and they've kind of combined it with the color revolutions, and then they've combined it with the whole Occupy Wall Street vibe, which they've perfected using the comms, all that stuff that they were doing during that time. Also, really exploding with social media and how to communicate and control social media. So they've been working on this version of what they've been doing for quite a while. I mean, Occupy Wall Street, if I'm not mistaken, was 2010. So they've been working on these techniques and tactics, community organizing and strategizing for 10 years, and then some. So this is what we're seeing now. Remember, I'm just going to go back in time, and one of the key elements to the Purple Revolution, which is what we are, the Purple Color Revolution, was the death of Prince. And I've talked about this before. And let me just fire Prince up here so you guys can see it, see what it's all about. So, of course, Prince is the purple one. Here he is, right there, in all his purple splendor. And the name of his band, of course, is The Revolution. Prince and the Revolution. Here he is, looking a lot like that Indian guru, Sai Baba. Prince is Sai Baba. This is one of my favorite Prince looks. Prince meets Sai Baba. So here he is. This is how we mostly know and remember Prince. It's for the color purple, right? Color purple. And where was he from? He was from Minneapolis, which is the Twin Cities. The Twin Cities. And where are we now? We have the True Node in Gemini. Somebody's trying to call me. Hold on. Hey, what's up? Well, I don't know. So I'm doing my show, and I'll let you know. Thanks. Bye. Speaking of revolution, apparently we don't have to wear masks at HEB anymore. So that's aside from everything. Anyway, Prince's band, The Revolution, right? It's The Revolution. He's from the Twin Cities. He is a Gemini. Where are we now? True Node in Gemini. And then where does it all go off? It goes off in Minneapolis. George Floyd. Minneapolis being what? The Twin Cities. And George Floyd claims that, well, it wasn't George Floyd, but Steven Jackson, and again, this is just to get you guys up to speed. If you're kind of new to this thing, I'm laying it out for you because this is where we are now. It's just kind of a recap, and then we're going to move forward. We're going to get some other stuff. Okay, here we go. So that's interesting. Well, I'll get into that one too. Hold on a second. That's a good sync. Okay, so Steven Jackson, and let me put up the Steven Jackson and George Floyd photo. Okay, so now Steven Jackson claims that he used to call George Floyd his twin, which to me is quite bizarre. So that's supposed to be George Floyd and Steven Jackson. By the way, I don't think this guy is this guy. I think they're two different people. Steven Jackson used to play for the number of different teams: San Antonio Spurs, Golden State Warriors. And here he is, right here, and he is sporting purple, right? So he's got the purple going on, and here he is with his supposed twin, George Floyd, even though they weren't actual twins. Now, I don't think this guy is this guy. That's just me. I think it's a different guy. Some people think that the George Floyd character is Steven Jackson. I don't think so. I know what Steven Jackson looks like. I don't think so. I don't think it was, to me, it didn't appear to be Steven Jackson. But again, we have this whole twin thing going on. And the interesting thing about Steven Jackson and George Floyd from an astrological perspective is that they're not twins, but they are opposites. Steven Jackson is an Aries and George Floyd is a Libra. So you still have a twinning effect. They're not twins in that they symbolically match or mirror one another, but they're part of an axis. So they sort of complete each other in an interesting way. So when does the whole thing go off? It goes off on May 25th, which is in the month of Gemini. And that's really the start of the violent overthrow of the so the color revolution is on at that point. It is really on. We have Prince, we have the purple one, we have Minneapolis, his band is The Revolution. He died, if I'm not mistaken, on, was it May 16th? And that was in 2016. And then it was 202 days between the death of Prince and the election of Trump. So we have 22, So we have the twin twos right there. And then, after the George Floyd thing happens and everybody starts to go batshit crazy, the world is bathed in what? The world is bathed in purple. And I'll show you guys. Let's see. And this was all across it wasn't just like in Detroit. Here, I'll show you. So downtown Detroit to be lit in purple, honoring George Floyd and victims of violence and police brutality. And it wasn't the only city. I mean, they had purple light bathing London. I mean, it was all over the world, right? All over the world. Not George Floyd Purple Heart. George Floyd Purple. The Purple Heart. There we go. Yeah. You see this? You guys should be able to see this. This is what it looked like. Right here. Right there. Bradford buildings. This is in Bradford. All lit up for George Floyd. So we know that we're in a revolution, and we've known this for a while. We are in the throes of a color revolution. And we're going to get into that. And we're coming in. And again, Biden declared victory on 11/7, which was sort of the kind of finalized day of the Bolshevik Revolution. And they're claiming it. They're claiming victory, right? That's what they're doing. Even though, like you'd have to be fucking blind to realize that this thing has been stolen right in front. And it's just not, and it wasn't even done with any degree of finesse, okay? Without even any degree of finesse or stealth. What they did is they just decided to go in and it's sort of like, it's like the political equivalent of going into a store and looting it, which is what we've been seeing, right? It's the political equivalent of that. That's what's happened. It's like, basically, fuck law and order. We're just going to go into these stores and we're going to take shit, and the police aren't going to do anything because, well, they've been told not to, and it's all part of the plan. And they're doing the same thing with the vote. It's not even stealthy, and it's just completely, egregiously, just abusive. And I don't think that the election process is over by any stretch. I mean, we're just getting cooking with this thing. And there are two people. One whom I'm pretty sure that he would have stood by Trump. And by the way, he didn't need to or have to, because Trump didn't treat him all that well when he was campaigning against him. That's Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz has said, look, I'm with him. He should fight this to the end. And then, weirdly enough, Lindsey Graham, and I'm not sure if Lindsey Graham is just trying to do this to get back to Trump and, stick a knife in his back. I don't know. But both of them are like, hey, you got to keep going with this thing and prove to these people that this has been a major fraud. Meanwhile, everybody else is just getting ready they're clearing the decks. I mean, they're getting out of the way. Mitch McConnell's getting out of the way. Mitt Romney, of course, who's always been just a turncoat, utter turncoat, and not a good person at all. I'm not sure he's a person. Anyway, but Mitt Romney piling on, and there's even a rumor that that Jared Kushner has said to his father-in-law, "Hey, maybe you should think about pulling the plug on this thing." How about that? Bibi Netanyahu has said that he looks forward to working with Joe Biden. I think you might Bibi. I look forward to working with Joe Biden. I've had a good relationship with Joe for 40 years now. I've known Joe for 40 years. I have a very good relationship with Joe, and I look forward to working with him and Vice President Harris. It's like, there you go. There you go. Donald, your pals over there are not as supportive as what you would like or hope or want to be. So it looks like they're closing off all the exits, and yet this thing is far from done. And I'd love for it to be done. I don't look. They stole the election. I think Trump won. He won vote-wise, but we knew that this was going to happen. They were telegraphing it the whole way. That Trump had the chart to win the election. That was easy. And it looks like he probably smashed the record for votes. I mean, there, all the fake votes aside, this was one of the highest turnouts for any vote in history. And, so much for apathy. I think we can stick a knife in the back of apathy. What's going to happen here is what so-called Americans do with it moving forward. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. We'll look at some charts, and I'm going to take a look at Trump's chart. I'm going to look at Biden's chart again. I'm going to look at the chart for when Biden declared his presidency. We're going to get into that. We're going to look at what's ahead, the week ahead, astrologically, and also a very interesting moment with Steve Bannon that happened, I believe, on Friday that I'm going to get into, and it has to do with fixed star Algol and why that's important as it keeps coming up again and again and again. Now we have to pay attention because the symbolism of fixed star Algol is very prevalent, and it is concerning, very, very concerning. It's disturbing. So we'll talk about that tonight as well. And if you have any questions, a little bit later, you guys can ask me some questions, and I can drill down and then be able to hopefully, whether it's about this or anything else, hopefully be able to help you out a little bit. But why don't we get, we do a little invocation here with the show at the beginning, and why don't we just go ahead and do that, as we dive into the astrology. So we really need this for our time, and I'm pretty clear, look, there's going to be a time here where unfortunately you're going to be pushed on one side or the other. Okay, I know the side I'm on, and I'm on the side of freedom, and I'm on the side of truth, and how I define that, how I live accordingly, as long as I don't impasse upon another, is basically a big part of my personal faith and walk in life. Okay, and I do my best to live that way. I'm not perfect, but that's what I do. So if one side has the opportunity to throw a monkey wrench into what the other side wants to do as a result of, their infringement upon my personal rights and freedom, my divine right and freedom, my sacred right and freedom, I'll take my chances with the other side, because I know for a fact that the Biden camp is going to come in and they're going to go full on UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Euro style lockdown. And Zeke Emmanuel is going to become his corona czar, his COVID czar. And that is our worst nightmare. I'm telling you right now, that is our worst nightmare. Zeke Emmanuel was one of the authors of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and he was a guy that openly encouraged the idea of end-of-life death panels. Okay, he is not warm and fuzzy at all, and of course he is part of the trifecta, the unholy trinity of the Emmanuel brothers, Ram, Ari, and Zeke. Ari being the Hollywood agent, Ram being the erstwhile ballet dancer, former mayor of Chicago with a missing finger, and of course Zeke Emmanuel, whose parents were, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, part of the Irgun gang and were involved in the bombing of the King David Hotel in Palestine, then Mandate Palestine at that time, which was one of the terror events which led to the ceding of Mandate Palestine from the UK/Turkey to what we now call as Israel. So he has deep revolutionary, well, shallow, means one generation, revolutionary roots. And this is the guy that wants to run out the coronavirus task force and strategy. So I have no interest in, supporting that. So I do have an interest in the opposition. And the opposition, at the very least, what we've seen with Trump is kind of at times a meandering, sometimes sideways support of Fauci. We've seen him be quite dismissive of Fauci. It's basically telling everybody that he would fire Fauci if he got reelected. So, and I don't think he'd be hiring Zeke Emanuel anytime soon. Now, clearly, I don't really want to be defined by either of them, right? I really don't want to be defined by either of them, because I think the whole thing is, it's big, it's theater, it's very dangerous theater. And we don't need a monolithic oligarchic structure to run our lives. I don't believe we do. However, we've gotten to this point now where, unfortunately, this clash of ideas, this clash of culture, this clash of spirit is really now upon us. And we really, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to sit it out. I think you can, or we can, develop some inner tools in order to navigate through it. But at some point, it's going to come down to, do you want these guys over here or do you want these guys over here at this point, right? It's going to come down to it. And you can say, no, I don't want that. And that's cool too. You want to try that on an internal level, and I'm there, right? But I've got to live here in this place and have to deal with the consequences of whatever happens. And frankly, I'd rather take my chances with the chaos of Trump versus the strict order that's going to be upon us with Biden, Harris, and let's face it, it's going to be the return of the neocons. I'll talk more about that. All right, so let's do the invocation here and try to get into a space where, there's a lot of people right now who are in a state of confusion, a state of chaos. Some people are in pain. Some people are worried. Some people have anxiety. Other people are smelling blood in the water. Other people are fuming and angry and agitated and furious. We've got a broad spectrum of emotion. But I can tell you, there's probably very few people who are really at peace and at ease with whatever's happening, right? And whatever happens, if you're at peace, if you're at ease, and you're at kind of a 0 point, you can do a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that you have to, just be cross-legged and cross-eyed and pretend that you're Rupert Spira. You can be in that place. You can be in that place that's really centered. And then you can figure out what you want to do and how you want to respond and, how you want to navigate through this. So I think it's a good place to start. It's a good place to be, no matter what happens, okay? Because if you're ahead of the moment, you're behind the moment, you're going to miss the moment. And there are many things that can happen in the moment. There are many possibilities in the moment. So this is what I hope we can all, not even achieve to be, but aspire to be and do our best to be, and then move from that place forward. Whatever happens, whatever we need to do. And there should be a broad spectrum of response, a very broad spectrum of response. I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight as well. Okay, here we go. Dear blessed and holy Mother, Father God of the great central sun, which is the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua Sananda Emmanuel, we ask that only the highest and best truth, wisdom, and information come through this channel at this time, and that we are all blessed. We are all blessed in grace with patience and fortitude and compassion, perspective, detachment, courage, strength, flexibility, intellect, expansion, humor, situational awareness, calm, focus, clarity, strength, compassion, empathy, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from this stream. Okay, let's get going. Let's get cracking. Let's talk about where we are. All right. So I want to look at what happened with Steve Bannon. I think it's a good place to start because it gets us talking about Algol. And we talked about Algol last week. And I'm going to show you guys once again. sort of the significance of fixed star Algol. So I'm just going to pull up a website here. You know what I should do? I should bring up David's site. I'm trying to get David Palmer on my show. So here's a show of goodwill, David, if you're watching. I'm tapping your site. Okay, here we go. Rumor has it that he does like the show, and I'd love to connect with him. Here we go. All right, so fixed star Algol, 2610 Taurus. It's got an orb of 2 degrees, which means that within 2, you're in contact. So fixed star Algol, Beta Persei, 2.1 magnitude, rare triple star, eclipsing binary located in the Medusa's head. Remember that. Carried in the left hand of the hero of the Perseus constellation. So we have Algol, right, in Perseus's left hand. That'd be down here. Okay. The name Algol comes from the Arabic word meaning the head of the ogre. The English translation became demon star, which with other names being Satan's head, the specter's head. In Chinese, belongs to a group of stars called the mausoleum. Oh, isn't that interesting? Algol, it appears to blink as shown as the animation below. Every 69 hours, its magnitude dips for about 10 hours before returning to full brightness. So here we go. In astrology, Algol is one of the most unfortunate stars. Ptolemy referred to it as the Gorgon of Perseus. It associated with death by decapitations, mirroring the myth of the hero Perseus' victory over the snake-headed Gorgon Medusa. Historically, it has received a strong association with violence across a wide variety of cultures. Medieval Arabic commanders tried to ensure that no important battle began whilst the light of Algol was weak. Okay. It may be connected to the periodic lucky prognosis, an ancient Egyptian calendar for lucky and unlucky days composed about 3,200 years ago. The 17th century astrologer William Lilly regarded any planet to be afflicted within 5 degrees. Okay, so now we got a 5-degree orb here. Astrologers, of course, said that it was the most unfortunate, violent, and dangerous star in the heavens. It certainly has been one of the best observed as the most noteworthy variable in the northern sky. So you can see it quite a bit, quite often here in the northern hemisphere. Algol represents the head of the Gorgon Medusa, who was slain by Perseus. Medusa, who was the only mortal one of the 3 Gorgon sisters. It was originally a beautiful maiden, but her hair was changed into hissing serpents by Minerva, in consequence for her having become, by Neptune, the mother of Chrysaor and Pegasus in one of Minerva's temples. This gave her so fearful appearance that everyone who looked at her was changed into stone. You know what's really interesting about that is, you know, if you go down the John Levy rabbit hole and get into some of the Tartaria stuff and how things just turn to stone, right? It's like you've got perhaps living remains that turn to stone. Perhaps statues really might have been actual people who were turned to stone. And then, of course, we have the Sodom and Gomorrah story where everything, right? You know, pillar of salt turned to stone. So this is an interesting kind of theme that we're dealing with here. Not just now as it relates to some of the stuff I'm going to bring up, but also historically. Okay, so fixed star Algol is of the nature of Saturn and Jupiter. So that's interesting because we're having what? Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. We've had it in Capricorn. Legacies, inheritance, fame, especially if rising, but foolish and unfortunate in love affairs. If culminating, honor and preferment. It causes misfortune, violence, decapitation, hanging, electrocution, and mob violence, and gives a dogged and violent nature that causes death to the native or others. It is the most evil star in the heavens. Algol is one of the 15 Behenian fixed stars. Its image is a human head cut off at the neck. It gives success to petitions. Interesting. Makes the word bold and magnanimous. Preserves the body. Protects against witchcraft. It turns evil spells back onto those who work them. Rules diamond, black, hellebore, and mugwort. So Algol is the head of Gorgo Medusa. Name is derived from Arabic Algol, meaning the demon or evil. And then we have, let's see, spirit or devil, derived from the same root as alcohol. Isn't that interesting? The dark one has the property of pure Satan character. The lighter one corresponds not only to Saturnian influence, but to Mars, Uranus, Pluto nature. So here we go. Blinking in and out. We have dark Algol and light Algol. If the dark fellow is showing towards Earth's path, the destructive, invisible action is exercised. These will be the hours in which Algol is least bright. In the olden times, people were well aware of this. Dr. Loma wrote in Cosmobiology, August 1950, Arabic commanders-in-chief in times of conquest made it a point that no important battles were begun when the light of Algol was weak. Okay. So this gives you a pretty detailed explanation of Algol. And Algol is pretty significant for a number of reasons. But the probably the most significant reason has to do with Donald Trump, which I'm going to show you now. And we've seen his chart many, many times. We'll bring it back up here again. And here is the midheaven with Trump's midheaven. And Algol is at 26 degrees. It should be, unless it's headed slightly backward here. So let's just look at it. Where is Algol? Fixed star, Vesta Juno. Yeah, so Trump's ascendant midheaven is 24. So I think Algol should be right there at about 26, right? Because he has Regulus. Let me check Trump out. He's got Regulus on the ascendant and Algol kind of right on the midheaven. So this idea of decapitation and hanging has been prevalent since Trump assumed office. And of course, the most famous image is Kathy Griffin, who has Trump's head cut off like a severed head. It's bloody. And Trump was actually mimicked or pantomimed in the performance of Julius Caesar in New York City in Central Park. So in that, it was a reenactment of the play by Shakespeare. And of course, the senators stabbed the Trump-like character in the back. So cutting, decapitation, these have all been pretty synchronous with Trump and Algol right here on the midheaven. So we've also looked at this in terms of the French Revolution and the Jacobins and the beheadings of the royalty or the noble class. Now, we also have noted that Amy Coney Barrett's Saturn sits right on Trump's midheaven. Now, this is a really important aspect because if this thing goes to the Supreme Court, and I would say the chances of that are pretty good. Now, to understand the legal process here, so they initially have to go to an appellate court or district court and then work their way up, right? District appellate, they've got to go through this sequence. And this is what happens. And eventually they can keep passing along until it gets to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court doesn't even have to hear the case. But being that Samuel Alito inserted himself into the process on Saturday, which is rare. Rarely do you see a Supreme Court justice insert himself into the legal proceedings, which would be the vote count in Pennsylvania. Like he said, cut it off. This is it. We're done. You're reading from this day forward, and that's it, right? So when Alito came out and said that, I think this might have a shot to go to the Supreme Court. We're going to talk about some options here that Trump has to play. Also some very strange stuff, which is astrologically related and not astrologically related in some ways. So, but if he does take it to the Supreme Court, remember, Amy Coney Barrett's Saturn sits right there. And Steve Cremmy brought up the Sword of Damocles on Friday's show. And essentially, Amy Coney Barrett could play that role. she could play the sword of Damocles dangling over Trump's head. Now, there's a couple different things if it went there that she could do. Number one is she could recuse herself, which is quite possible, by the way. She set the precedent. She's recused herself before. Number two, she might rule on something against Trump only to prove a point that she would be a capable steward moving forward with the Supreme Court, and in so doing could reconcile that decision by showing the quote-unquote new bosses that they don't have to pack the court. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? Amy Coney Barrett could make that decision, and the decision would be legal, but it could also be philosophical, right? Like for the good of the court, that she could either recuse or even vote against Trump so that the left would not pack the court. They could retain the so-called integrity of the court. I'm not sure if that's the case. Clearly, with Algol, her Saturn on top of his chart, conjunct Algol, it is a judgment. She will likely render a judgment. So that's something to really keep an eye on if it gets that far. Because so much of what we're going through is we're in uncharted territory. I mean, we were kind of here before with Gore and Bush. And by the way, Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett and who was it? Thomas, Clarence Thomas. They were, all three of them were there, or they were involved in some way, shape, or form with the decision around Bush versus Al Gore. And I believe Kavanaugh was legal counsel for Bush at that time. And Clarence Thomas was, of course, on the Supreme Court. And I forget what role Amy Coney Barrett played, but all three of them were involved to some degree in that decision. And here they are again now. So there's a chance that this doesn't have to go to the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you why. Donald Trump never has to concede. He does not have to concede. What's interesting is Van Jones just did an interview, a TED Talk. I think it was prior to the election. And he basically said, hey, look, there's nothing that says that he has to leave office. It's always been a fait accompli that the losing president would concede. It's like, okay, I've lost. Here's my concession speech. That's when it ends. That is when it ends. So theoretically, Trump never has to concede. He never has to give a concession speech, which then sets up how do you remove somebody from that position and a transference of power. And when we look at the color revolutions, I mean, there's a very consistent pattern, and the pattern is that they want to run that person out of wherever it is they're residing, whether it's the state house or the palace or wherever their offices are and their cabinet. They want to run them out. They want to show people that this person has been humiliated. They've been humiliated. So in some ways, Trump is sort of playing into their hands a little bit, sort of. So if he just said, hey, it's been great. I want to thank Joe. It was a great race. Fought hard. You guys cheated like hell because Trump couldn't candy coat it. You cheated like hell. You really did a number on the American people. They won't forget it. But you know what? I'm bowing out, and I'll be back. And that's it. I mean, he could do that. And the left wouldn't have the pleasure of going in and taking pitchforks and torches and literally taking him out to the street and decapitating him. That's what they would love to do. I'm telling you right now, that is exactly what they would love to do, especially with Algol there. So now, I wouldn't say that they have that choice or they have that chance or that opportunity, but they kind of do. Because to this date, to this point in time, 9:17 p.m., he hasn't conceded. All right. So here we go. The game is on. Now, when I looked at his chart and I looked at election night, and it was really rolling that way. He's got the nodal return. The moon was in Gemini. It was perfect. Like, it didn't get much better in a lot of ways for the re-election for Trump. And as we sort of drifted into the night, right, as we kind of pushed off the shore and got into the election, it was completely going that way. In fact, it was the country was bleeding red, and it was so red that the Young Turks were losing their minds. And then as the night progressed, you could see things beginning to change a little bit. And we stayed with Steve Bannon until probably about 11:30 at night. And I could kind of tell, it's like there's something's going on. Something's happening. And I think just before midnight, the witching hour, Pennsylvania stopped counting votes. They said, shut it down. And when we got off the live stream on Tuesday night, I was uncomfortable. I had a bad feeling. And when I got up the next day, my bad feeling was confirmed. So we knew that the vote steal was going to be on. It was like, it wasn't so-called reality versus astrology, because astrologically, Trump was kicking ass. I mean, it wasn't just the election or election night. I mean, the time leading up to it with all the rallies and the parades and the flotillas and the cars. I mean, that's all right here. That's all the nodal return. It was conjuncting his sun, conjuncting his true node. Like, this is it. This is it. Now, it could represent his peak, possibly. But because the true node moves this way, clockwise, his peak actually would be on Algol. And that would be talking like March, April, May of 2022. So right around May of 22, the true node will be on Algol. That'll be a very interesting time for Trump, wherever he is. If he's still in office, and that true node is on Algol, like, we are not out of the woods by any stretch. Once his true node passes across Algol and moves into the 9th house, I think it could be, as it separates, right? Because it's approaching. The true node is approaching Algol. And once it separates from Algol, it'll be the 9th house, which is higher consciousness, law, wealth, here in Taurus. But it's quite a journey from essentially here to here, because Uranus is right there. That's the next station, and that's going to be right around Christmas time. So we're getting towards the end of the year. Christmas, right around the 21st of December, when we have the super conjunction. He's going to have the true node conjuncting Uranus in his chart. And he's a Uranian character. Trump is complex, but he's Uranian in the sense that he's disruptive. And that's exactly who he is and what he's done. And I think he's been disruptive. A lot of people think, well, he's just there to continue this kind of, the reason why all this is happening with Biden and the rise of the neocons, or the reassembling of the neocons, the gang getting all back together, is because of Trump. He's playing a role, and he essentially created this hell space for these demons to spawn in. I mean, there are people that think that, and there are a lot of people who, believe Trump to be, version of the Antichrist. To MAGA is another. MAGA is actually it's like the height. Like, if you were to raise to the height of a COVID a satanic COVID cult, your title would be mega. So it is the pinnacle, it is the peak of the satanic cultic witchcraft hierarchy. That's who that person is. They're called the mega. So they're above the they're above the warlock, they're above the magister, like it's mega. So there are people who believe that that's who Donald Trump is, that that's the role he plays, and that because of that he has spawned this reality. Well, this reality was already headed in that direction. Okay, I got news for you. It was already headed in that direction because we had somebody before Trump who was just as chaotic and not a Uranian character, but sowed a lot of chaos and a lot of discord. So that was already in play. I mean, that was already in motion. And if anything, there could be some potential to, I wouldn't necessarily slow that down, but maybe bring some noise, bring some staccato to the sort of the harmony. What might we call harmony? But some staccato to the orchestration of the prior administration. Okay, and he totally has, so much that they went after his ass. That they decided we got to go after him. Right? He was public enemy number one from day one, from before day one, and it hasn't abated. Now, of course, that has a lot to do with Mars on his ascendant, because that people who have Mars on their ascendant or Aries rising learn through conflict. I mean, that's how it works. You got Mars and Leo conjunct Regulus on your ascendant. Good luck. Good luck. You're going to get a lot of people pissed off at you, and you better be able to handle it. And for the most part, I think he has, not always gracefully, but I think he's handled it. So this is what Trump brought to the table. And there are a lot of people who think they're going to be able to put the gin or the genie back in the bottle just by electing Biden and Harris. You're completely wrong. And it's not even close. It's not even close. So he has, I would say, astrologically, a few tricks up his sleeve. Now, what we know about Uranian characters is that they're capable of just about anything. And that could be positive. It could be negative, depending upon how you perceive it. So he could say, all of a sudden, I'm done. Right? He could pivot on a dime. I'm done. Or something else could come into play, like the military, for instance. So we're not done with the election. It's not close. I mean, the race theoretically is close, but this whole process and working this process out it's not close. I'd be very surprised if Wednesday all of a sudden we've got a whole new political regime. Although with Uranus in this chart at this point, I would say just about anything could happen. But I don't think it's going to. And in fact, I think we're about to see the beginning of a counteroffensive on Monday. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And yes, we're in political times. So this is political talk. And I'm going to try to keep it at a high level. I'm going to try to bring some consciousness into it. It's some cyclical understanding, but we can't get out of this now, per se. It is ubiquitous, and it is permeating our experience. So this is going to be a very, very interesting time. Very interesting time. Let me talk about Steve Bannon here, because I wanted to continue this, because I'll come back to Trump's chart later, because I wanted to set the stage for Algol, and let me see if I can find the Bannon piece here. So this is I think it's right here. It is. So this is what Bannon said the other day. Okay, I'm going to tell you. So this is how you know that Algol is in play, right here. All right, so he's on America's Voice, which is one of these stations now that I think has probably become a lot more relevant than and Fox News. So listen to what Bannon has to say here.
I'd actually like to go back to the old times of Tudor England. I'd put the heads on pikes, right? I'd put them at the two corners of the White House as a warning.
So I'm translating in French. He's basically saying, this is the only thing I could find. It was very hard to find him actually saying this. He said that he wanted to go back to Tudor England and put the heads of Fauci and Christopher Wray on spikes at each end of the White House. So let me see if he says anything else here besides this French overdub. That's Chris Wray, whoever that guy is.
Now, we can't really have Thanksgiving because Fauci, who his last day should be today, President Donald J. Trump. Now, I actually want to go a step farther, but I realize the president is a kind-hearted man and a good man. I'd actually like to go back to the old times of Tudor England. I'd put the heads on pikes, right? I'd put them at the two corners of the White House as a warning to federal bureaucrats. You either get with the program or you're gone. Time to stop playing games. Blow it all out. Put Rick Grinnell today as the interim head of the FBI. That'll light him up, right?
You know what, Steve? Just yesterday there was the anniversary of the hanging of two Tories in Philadelphia.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Just yesterday there was the anniversary of the hanging of two Tories in Philadelphia. And here Bannon is talking about putting Fauci and Wray's heads on spikes outside of the White House.
These were Quaker businessmen who had cohabitated, if you will, with the British while they were occupying Philadelphia. These people were hung. This is what we used to do to traitors.
That's how you won the revolution. Nobody wants to talk about it. Revolution wasn't some sort of garden party, right? It was not. It was a civil war. It was a civil war.
So, okay. You know, I'm far from politically correct, really. And when I hear that, when I hear Bannon, you know what I hear? I hear Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now, where he talks about the horror and mortal terror. That's what I hear. I hear John Milius. That's what I hear. When I hear Steve Bannon, I hear the spirit of somebody from another time. And certainly not this time, but somebody from another time. And somebody who understands the rigors of the type of war and the type of battle that he understands that, you know, for all intents and purposes, we are in. Like, he gets it. He understands it. He understands that the so-called opposition would have no problem in doing that. And they've shown that. I mean, they have unleashed their dogs, you know, across the cities of America: Portland, Seattle, New York, Washington, D.C., Oakland, Los Angeles. We've seen it, right? We've seen it. And, you know, these people who are theoretically protesting, they're not there doing the Mahatma Gandhi dance. And Bannon is basically sampling a throwback, like, look, this is how it's done. This is how it's done. You show these people that they cross a line, this is what will happen to them. Now, it would have been good probably for his career if he was using it as a metaphor. Let me give you a metaphor. I'm metaphorically speaking, of course, right? Like, if he could do that, but he can't do that. He's a Sagittarius. So if he could have said, metaphorically speaking, I put their heads on spikes, but he didn't. He's like, I would do that. I would do that. And so guess what? He lost his lawyer. He got kicked off of Vimeo. He got kicked off of Twitter. And whatever you think of Steve Bannon, you know, we do have the right to free speech. Now, there is the effect of so-called free speech. And you just saw what happens. Because some people think of, you know, your free speech as infringing upon the safety and the rights of others, which is exactly what those platforms did. So you're done, right? You're too dangerous. And I get it. I get where he's coming from. I totally get where he's coming from. And it's like the language of novelists and fiction and people who do fiction, right? It's hyperbolic. It's dark and it's mythic in some ways. But we're in a very dark period. We're in a very dark phase. And I was listening to Rick Wiles on True News, and he played that clip, and he just tore into Bannon. And he's like, we're Christians, and we don't do that. And Steve Bannon is sowing discord, and he's sowing the spirit of the devil. And it's like, okay, all right, Rick, good on you. You're going to rise above it. You're going to rise above it. And good luck with that. Good luck with that. I want to talk about Christianity, but tonight's not tonight. You tune in tomorrow, and I'll have a few words to say about that. So we can see now Algol coming into effect, right? Bannon brought it up, the decapitations of Fauci and Wray on spikes, the guy in his studio talking about the two traitors, who were mingling with the Tories and in Philadelphia, and they got hanged. And even Kathy Griffin, right around the election, brought the bloody head out. So Algol is definitely in play. It's in play. And I don't know. I think David Bowie's Dark Star album might have something to do with Algol. Might have something. I'd have to go through and sort through all the titles again to try to make some connections there. But this is where we are, right? And it's not just the physical personification or the physical manifestation of losing one's head, but it's also the country itself, as the head is sort of being removed from the body in a lot of ways. So it's almost like we're these two separate entities, and one's over here, one's over here, and we're trying to live together as one entity, but we can't, because we've been cut off in a lot of ways from either our reason and our instincts. And you can tell people all these things about what's going on with the election, and there is you do the math, and this is what Facebook is doing. So there's a math formula where you add up all the votes, and then you add up all the people that are registered. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And every time everybody brings it up on Facebook, Facebook just cuts it, right? Cuts it. And that's another aspect of decapitation. If you get your Twitter account removed, you're getting axed from Twitter. You're being decapitated or cut off from your access through social media. So this is a big, big theme. And earlier in the year, we had these weird kinds of news kinds of events. You had Bubba Wallace down in NASCAR, which he was like, oh, look, there's a noose in my garage. And really what it was is just the rope to pull the freaking door down in the garage. But they sent down 15 FBI people to go check that out. So that was a really big deal. And then of course you had Jussie, who had the noose around his neck. And by the way, Kamala Harris and Cory Booker were trying to get this anti-lynching bill passed. And Jussie Smollett was their actor. And the connections between Jussie Smollett and the DA and Kamala Harris, man, they are like that. And you look at Jussie Smollett's chart, Kamala Harris's chart, like that. Like he was basically hired to play that role. He was hired to play that role. And then what happened? He hired these two brothers, Gemini, right, to play it all out. And that didn't go so well, did it? So this is a theme that's been going on. This whole, Algol at the top of Trump's chart. And, it literally cut Steve Bannon off from his media access. And keep in mind, that's what Trump has right on his ascendant at 24 degrees. And that's where Amy Coney Barrett's Saturn is, right there, right on Trump's ascendant. So we're in it. We are in this thing. We are in the midst of a color revolution. You know, people will look back and write about this time, and hopefully you'll be able to say that you were here, and hopefully you'll be able to say that you lived through it and got through it and got to the other side of this thing, because that's where we are. We are in St. Petersburg, 1917. This is where we are right now, and there are philosophical and spiritual ramifications for all of this, obviously, and you're gonna have to figure out where you are in that continuum as well, and you're gonna have to figure out, what's important during this time, and you're not gonna have a lot of time to figure that out. By the way, you're just not. You may have a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, maybe a month to figure out what's important and where you are and what happens if things get really hot, right? You're going to have to figure, and some of this is just out of your hands. Like, some of this is just above our pay grade, and that's just the way it is. But some of it will actually interpenetrate our lives, and especially if Harris and Biden get it. And I'm just being straight up and honest. That you're going to be dealing with the Zeke Emanuels of the world. You're going to be dealing with possibly Dick Cheney again, who has been bandied about as being Joe Biden's, or whoever this Biden guy is. I'm not even sure he's real, by the way. I'm not even sure he's real. You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with the return of the neocons. George Bush is, rising. We're in the judgment. This is the year of judgment. And all these cadavers from the past now are starting to kind of, be raised up out of their coffin-like state. It's like the corpse of Dick Cheney and the corpse of, George W. Bush, and the corpse of Joe Biden. They're all just they're dancing around now. It's the mummers dance now. And George Bush, oh yeah, we need reconciliation. We need to come together as one country. Yeah, right. So you're going to get those people. You're going to get the neocons. They're coming back. They are coming back. You're going to get the Bill Kristols of the world, the Dick Cheneys of the world. You get the Don Rumsfelds of the world. You're going to get their foreign policy. You're probably going to get a new war, because those guys love war more than they love themselves. They love war. At least Trump has dialed back on the war shit. Okay, are we still hanging out in Syria and copping a little oil in Syria? Yeah, sure. It's not out there. So guess what happens? If we don't have the war out there, I guess the war comes home here. I guess that's really sort of the message. You go fucking fight those wars out there. You go spend those military industrial complex coupons and go spend them out there, and you don't have to deal with it here. But guess what? You didn't do that. So guess what? Now you got to deal with it here. Ha ha ha. Right? This is really what the message is. But I tell you, those people get in and they will go for war. What is it good for? What were we doing when Biden was vice president and Hillary was Secretary of State and Obama was president? Well, we created ISIS. What do you think they were doing with Hillary's server? They were running a proxy war off of Hillary's server. That's exactly what they were doing. Not including all the side deals, they were running a proxy war. They were running an illegal war. That's why that server was a big deal. Big deal. And that's who we were funding. They got the arms and the weapons from Gaddafi. Right? This is what was going on. So that's what they're into. They're into that. Obama set records for these drone strikes. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. So people don't understand that, though. You got kids, you got 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. You better think about this. You better think about it really, really, really carefully, because your kids who are getting very close to military age, fighting age, And by the way, if they wanted to get rid of the population and get rid of a bunch of young Americans, just take them out, just go to war and conscript them and draft them, and there you go, right? Boom, problem solved. And if the neocons get back in, they love war. They love it. The neocons are Trotskyites. They basically fled the Soviet Union. It wasn't just Leon Trotsky, but it was his inner circle, people around him. They went to Mexico, and of course Trotsky, did a little thing with Frida Kahlo, and Stalin didn't want him around. He didn't want him ever coming back to Russia. So what did he get? Ice pick right here. Right? No more Leon Trotsky. And then the Trotskyites moved north, and they moved into the United States, and they settled in and around the Chicago area. And that's where you get people like Irving Kristol and Norman Podhoretz and the beginning of the neocon movement. And these people were hardcore, screaming, commie Trotskyites. That's what they were. And then they all changed. They all changed their stripes. And that's when Nixon got into power. And they saw the future of power in the United States. And it wasn't with the Democrats. It was with the Republicans. So they infiltrated the Republican ranks. They created think tanks. Project for New American Century, of course, is one of their great achievements, shining achievements. Brookings Institute, American Enterprise International, JINSA, all those groups, those are all neocon-driven groups. And they'll be back. They'll be back. Douglas Feith, the whole gang, they'll all come right on back. They'll bring Ari Emanuel with them. So have fun with that. If you think that we're going to get what we'll get. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little political here, but I can just see this shit. We'll get the worst of the neocons. Then we're going to get the worst of kind of the intersectionalist sort of, critical race theory group. Then we'll also get the climate change mafia. They'll all come in. And then, of course, we'll get the Chinese trickling through and working with the neocons. And oh boy, isn't that just going to be a house party? Isn't that just going to be a real house party? It won't be. It won't be. It will be an extremely difficult place to live. Very difficult. And then they will begin to emulate everything that Western Europe is doing, along with what's happening to our friends in New Zealand and Australia. Soon to be Canada. Of course, England is really going through a very hard time right now. That's what they have planned for this country. So we're it. We got about maybe 3 to 4 weeks to figure out where you're going to be on this thing. Where are you going to be? What side of this thing you're going to be on? You're going to have to figure it out. It's a Gemini time. I hate to say it, but it's true. And I personally, I would prefer for Trump to be the rightful president, because he's actually, in my estimation, won the election based on everything I've seen with the votes. I'm going to get into some of the, I'll get into some of the fringe stuff, because I know you guys probably want some of that. But I would rather take my chances with that side and what could happen theoretically if he could stay on path and get rid of some of these scum suckers that have been around him, including the son-in-law. Now, the things that I've seen recently with Trump is that he's really tapped into this Sidney Powell, who is Michael Flynn's lawyer. I like this person. I think she's a woman. I can't tell anymore, but I think she's a woman. And I like her, though. She's very good. He's got Tom Fitton, who is Mr. Judicial Watch, who I think probably has some interesting alliances, let's put it that way. But I think Tom Fitton is a sharp guy. And now he's got those two, and he's got Rudy Giuliani, who knows where all the bodies are buried with 9/11. So this is interesting now, because this is really what we see as the tactical team, and they're going to launch tomorrow into their defense of what they think is happening. So there's some other, okay, I'll get into some of the anomalies now, some fringy stuff, some of which has to do with astrology, okay? And we're going to look at this really through the lens of like Gemini. So let me see if I can find exactly what I'm looking for. All right, exactly what I'm looking for. Let's see. So look at Benford's law. Benford's law is apparently shows the implausibility of Biden vote distribution, but Twitter and Facebook are suspending anyone who retweeted a tweet on Benford's law. So that's decapitation. They're just decapitating. They're cutting you off. You no longer have a voice, right? They're just like, that's what's happening. Okay. Here's some interesting stuff. All right. Let me see. Here we go. Where are we? Oh, Trump's got new tweets. Let me just see what we have here. Hot off the press. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Everything now has a caveat by Trump. This claim about election fraud is disputed. He says that they're going to, where are we? What's the latest tweet? What do we have here? So it was 3 hours ago. He's retweeting Lindsey Graham, and he's retweeting Ted Cruz. Now, what's amazing is that these guys are actually government officials, and Twitter is this is a claim that election fraud is disputed. So these guys actually are politicians. So the Mark Levin show at 8 p.m. will discuss the mail-in ballot hoax. Here we go. Here, I'll show you guys some of the tweets. So investigators dispatch after Fulton County discovers issue with ballots. Apparently, they have found 120,000 ballots, i.e. votes, in Georgia. So I guess this was 5 hours ago, so that would have been 8 o'clock. That was a while ago. So Mark Levin, who apparently is not doing so well physically. So Trump is on the offensive now. And here we go. Here you go. The game is on. But that's not really what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you something else. Let me see. So this thing is really bizarre. And I was going to try to save it for tomorrow, but there are some people who probably won't see tonight's show. And some of you guys are sharp. You probably already know all about this. All about this. Hold on. Okay, so check this out. So this thing is just completely bizarre. Like I said, some of you are probably all over. All right, here, I'm going to play this. I'm going to bring this up. So yesterday, remember, we're dealing with heavy duty Gemini energy, okay? Because there are two events happening simultaneously. One event is Rudy Giuliani. Keep in mind, he's a Gemini. Trump is a Gemini. So they're doing this kind of Gemini tag team. Now, Giuliani is calling a press conference at this strange place called the Four Seasons Landscape Company. and it's in Philadelphia. And it's like, well, what the hell is going on here? Okay. Well, first of all, you've got Mr. DJ over here doing the Trump magic sign. So he brings this press conference. He calls this press conference. And right as he calls this press conference, another event happens, and it's Joe Biden basically saying, I'm the new president. AP calls it. Fox News calls it. MSNBC calls it. Okay, we're calling Biden president. It's happening simultaneously. So it's interesting in that this event is triggering the other event that is being called by AP and the mainstream media. So we have these two kinds of seminal events, or at the very least interesting, but for different reasons. And I'll tell you why. So first of all, what we have here, Giuliani, is basically this is a chessboard, right? So the symbolism here is really interesting. So we have a chessboard here, and they're playing chess. These guys are playing chess right now. And they're playing chess with the other side who's been working on this for quite a while. So why is this force? Why here? And there are people that thought that it was a joke, that it was supposed to be at the Four Seasons Hotel. Like the really fancy Four Seasons Hotel where they had the Las Vegas shit going down. Ali bin Walad, that guy. Anyway, so here's Giuliani, and he's talking about that they have proof, right? Now, over here, we have Sunoco. And what's interesting about Sunoco is that it's related to what? The sun, right? And what is the sun connected to? Leo. What is Leo connected to? The crown. And what kind of interesting little malady are we all, or have we all had? It's all had some impact on our lives. The crown virus, the coronavirus, right? So this is interesting. Now, again, why is it interesting? Because I'll tell you why. I got to get the right thing here. This is kind of mind-blowing shit, right? Like I'm not a big Q person, but sometimes this stuff is, at least on a symbolic level, I think is kind of interesting, especially this one, because Giuliani this place, I gotta find I gotta show you the image. I can't. You got to see the image. There's a very specific image. All right, this is the image, what I want to show you right here. That place, Four Seasons, has two, again, Gemini, significant stories to tell. It has access to, guess what? A crematorium. What is the crematorium's name? Delaware Valley, okay? Philadelphia Crematories. So what the hell is going on here? Well, that's interesting. That's very Masonic, isn't it? Look at that shit. Look at that shit right there. You got the compass and the square. These people are sneaky. So this place, theoretically, was within camera view of the Four Seasons Landscape Company. Now, I'll show you the some of the clue stuff, which is, again, I think is interesting. So the idea here is that they were capturing something, from this Four Seasons. And apparently what they were capturing was trucks rolling into the crematorium with close to 600,000 ballots. Okay. They had cameras. They had cameras. Now, this is motion sensitive, right? I don't know if this is a camera or not. It could be just light. But apparently, they were somehow able to have cameras. They caught them on camera coming in to burn the votes. They caught them burning 600,000 votes. Now, I don't know how they get the number 600,000, just to be straight with you. But if you were going to burn votes, 600,000 is a lot of votes, by the way. It's a lot of paper. You would have to go to a place like a crematorium to make it happen. You would have to do that, right? You would have to do that. The other weird thing about this Four Seasons landscape, and I'm not sure where this plays into everything, but apparently that Four Seasons landscape had at least a dozen people that I know of that were connected to it, that were sending money through that Four Seasons landscaping, and they were using these multiple names, and they were using multiple addresses. Like some person could be from California, but they could also be from Tennessee, and they were sending money to the various Biden groups, Share Blue, Biden for president, whatever. So I don't know if they had figured that out and were actually using that as a bit of a honey trap. I don't know if that's the case with that. But what I do know is the strange proximity and this whole thing with Delaware Valley, the Delaware Valley Crematory. Like, that's just bizarre since Joe Biden's from Delaware. So there are some very weird things going on here. We are in this period of high strange. Now, the other thing, and again, this gets into kind of the world of Gemini and spying and, dual identities, that theoretically on election night, there was a situation room next to the White House, and that there was a group of them in that situation room, and that they were using high-grade military tech and intel, and they were watching all the votes being flipped through scorecard. They were watching the whole thing, and that again, if this is all true, and I don't think Giuliani would just go roll out to that Four Seasons shitty little sprinkler place unless there was some deeper meaning, unless he's trolling people that are looking for symbolism in the Q verse. And I don't think that that's really true. I think that there's a there there. There's a there there, and they've got something. And I think they have something else as well with the flipping of the votes in this group. And I do believe that was going on because they had all this time to prepare. They knew what was coming. They knew what was coming. And I think they sat back, and it took me a while to kind of get to this place because all I've seen from Trump and his administration is just more and more retreat, more and more retreat. And retreat can be a strategy. Like Sun Tzu says, it's a strategy. If you are not up to the match, retreat is not a bad thing. It's probably better to get out and try to figure out how you can deal with it. But there's another more strategic version of retreat. And that's when you keep retreating further and further back. And as the very aggressive group keeps coming forward and feels as though they have you on the run, you basically retreat to a place where there's about 10,000 troops waiting for them, and they're all stationed at altitude and just firing down into the valley. This is what I think is on the table now. that that they've been drawing them back and back and back and back and back. And I've not been a fan of the strategy because I think it's been very difficult for a lot of Americans to go through and to witness, and especially with the corona stuff, and have their businesses blown out. And it's not been easy. It's been tough on the kids. It's been tough on a lot of people. And yet, and this is a big yet and a big if this thing keeps going in that direction, and all of a sudden they suck them in to this vortex, and then in the vortex they hit the lever and just flush them, right? That's possible. That's very possible. So if you were going to, and again, I'm not trying to flip the cue card, but if you were going to try to drain the so-called swamp, right? How would you do it? How would you do it in the most economical way? Because in order to really turn the aircraft carrier around in the middle of the ocean takes time. It's not, you just don't flip a Yui. So if we're trying to, theoretically, not everybody, right? But if we're trying to change the culture in this country, in a culture that's based on corruption, a culture that's based on greed, a culture that's based on just absolute utter tyranny that is around almost every corner now, whether it has to do with freedom of speech or your medical rights, personal freedoms, like it is there. If you can't see it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Maybe a ketamine milkshake might help you. I don't know. But if you can't see it, it's there. So if you wanted to change the culture rapidly, if you wanted to hit the culture with a microwave and do it quickly, what would you do? You would basically bring it all to the surface, right? Everybody and all to the surface, and then you would suck them in and suck them in and suck them in and suck them in, and guess what? You throw a trap on them at that point, and then they're fucked. They're totally fucked. So what would take, say 15 years? 15 years. It really, if you look at 1968 to 2020, that's how long it took the left to put everything into place. From 1968, everything got really ramped up. But if you didn't want to wait that long, and you needed to make it all happen very quickly, this is how you would do it. This is how you would do it. You would wind up having the greatest number of indictments possible. And I'm not talking about the Q indictments. I'm talking about if this comes out and it comes out in the wash and it really begins to hit and people see it, and it'll be one of the biggest holy shit moments that this country and maybe this world has ever seen. And I'm just telling you that it has the potential for that. I've looked at the angles, and remember now, Mars is retrograde. Let's bring it back to astrology. What happens when Mars is retrograde? Just like this, right? Just like this. Retreats. It moves backwards. This is what's been happening. That is the strategy. When Mars goes retrograde, it's good to move with Mars. Well, guess what's going to happen? On the 15th, Mars is going to move forward. That's going to be a very interesting time. A very, very interesting time. Now, I saw something today. I'll show you something. You're probably not going to get this on a lot of other shows. I'm going to show you something today. This has to do with Mars. So this was captured today, November 8th. And I think it's significant on a number of levels. So this is Troy, Michigan. Notice the name, Troy. Troy, Michigan. Watch what happens here.
He waved?
So I'm going to play it again. Here we go. That's Troy, Michigan. That's from today. So what's going on there? What is going on there? We know that there's a lot of improprieties in Michigan. We know that there's a lot of stinky poo going on in Michigan. Now we're seeing the military show up. And I don't think the military is there on behalf of President Biden. That's my sense. By the way, Mark Esper is about ready to hand Trump his resignation papers, which I think is probably a pretty good thing, considering he works at the CFR. So we could be staring down something pretty significant. In that, if indeed this is the strategy with the Mars retrograde and the moving back, and then all of a sudden we got you, right? Then things are going to get very heavy and very hot. Very heavy and very hot, because they're going to probably have to call martial law. That's probably going to happen. You better wrap your head around that. Okay. Now, the reason why is because if that's the case, and they've got these guys dead to rights, the guys that they have dead to rights who are so close they can smell it, they're going to be pissed. They're going to be really pissed, and they are going to unleash the hounds of hell. Okay. This is potentially what we're dealing with. And if that's true, if that's the case, we play this out, and there are foreign entities involved. We're dealing with, the Chi-Coms or whomever. Now, guess what? That's a whole nother layer here. Things can get very hot very quickly. So I think it's interesting. These are very interesting developments. Now, are they going to lay them out there over the course of the next 24, 48 hours? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to start to go kind of a conventional route, and they're going to start to hammer this through the system. But I think that the left knows, or the Bolsheviks, the Bolshevik Neocons know that they've got this thing, and they don't want them to kind of roll this thing out. Which is why I think they, number one, it was convenient for them because it is the 100-year. Well, it's the 103rd year of the Russian Revolution on the 7th of November. So take a deep breath and get ready for Mars to go direct. It's crazy, right? On election night, how we had Mercury Station, and it was just like, it worked out just like fucking Mercury Station. Just drop, boom, no more voting. We're going to shut it down. It was just like everything stopped. Nope, not moving forward, not moving back. We're just stopped. It was a perfect example of Mercury Station. So here we go. This is it. You are living through history right now. You're living through historic times. And these are monumental times. The forces of good and evil are going to be played out. Sometimes it's going to be hard to see who's good. Sometimes it's going to be real easy to see who's evil. And you're going to see it. You're going to be a witness to it. And hopefully you'll be able to move through these times gracefully with perspective and awareness and clarity. And when Mars moves forward, it could mean good things for you theoretically in your life too. If you've been feeling on the fence, or you've been feeling hesitant, if you have not been able to kind of, put any momentum together in your life, right? Mars, direct will be very helpful. But people's lives are going to take a bit of a back seat in some ways to what's going on in the big picture. Like, you're still going to get up, you're still going to go to work, or work from home. These things are still going to happen. Your kids are something to deal with school. We're in a very interesting, strange kind of bardo now. We're in between worlds. Okay. So normalcy, I think, is good. You try to keep things normal, try to keep things as kind of routine based as possible. But don't go to sleep. You cannot go to sleep because this thing is a rapidly moving river and you don't want to, sort of trail off and miss something. Okay. This is no time for a vacation. We're all on the clock now. As far as the voting stuff goes, it was rampant. It wasn't just like there, in Philadelphia or Michigan or Georgia or North. We had a ton of shit here in Texas. We had a poll watcher that got tossed out in Austin. They were pulling all their little shenanigans in Austin. They put up barriers, plexiglass barriers, so you could see the vote count through the plexiglass barrier, because there are these things called poll watchers, and it is our right to witness our electoral process at work, and poll watchers are a very important part of this. Well, the poll watchers got screwed. They got totally screwed through this entire process, and even here in this town, our poll watchers got jacked around by the election judge for the second time. For the second time, they got jacked around. They got kicked out. They were threatening to arrest these poll watchers. I mean, it's nuts. It is nuts. And it's like, it is so ironic, right, that they would put up this plexiglass barrier, which is transparent, but their process is anything but transparent. It's crazy. Totally crazy. So it's not just what's going on in those areas that are being contested. It's the entire thing. We're seeing the entire thing. Like, I've never witnessed so much corruption and tyranny and just pure, like, how do I say this? Just pure evil in some ways. Pure evil. Like when I look at Scott Morrison, who's the PM from Australia, congratulating Biden, he's like happy. He's gleeful because Scott Morrison works for the Chinese and he knows that Biden will be a comrade in arms. And I look at what's happening in Australia with the good people of Australia, the good people of New Zealand, and all these other countries. And the tyranny of these lockdowns is just mind-boggling. We've never seen anything like it. We're finally getting to witness the visceral impact of this dark spirit that's descended upon our planet. It's been here for a long time, and it's showing its face now. It is showing its face. It's moving into people that are like these empty vessels and shells, these archonic receptacles who are now, basically becoming these puppets, right? Being moved around. These etheric strings are kind of, jerking them around and moving their vocal cords. And it's just like, who the fuck are you? How did you get to be that way? This is really, it's insane, totally insane. But we're seeing it now. And we're supposed to. We're supposed to. It's a time of revelation. It's the year 2020. It's the judgment card. We're seeing everything. It's coming out. And we should be thankful for that. Would it be great if we all had kumbaya and just sat around, eating s'mores and singing campfire songs? Sure, it'd be great, but that's not what's happening. And it hasn't happened in a long time, hasn't happened in a while. And there's been a canker in the human experience for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And we're at a point in time where the worm just might turn. And you may not be comfortable with where this thing is headed. You may not be comfortable with it, but I'm telling you, we're going to have to go through it. And if we're going to purge our experience, if we're going to get clean, if we're going to detox from these blood-sucking parasites that have been making our lives miserable through their usurious practices, through warping our minds with toxic chemicals in the water we drink, in the air that we breathe, in the food that we eat, and the things that they've injected into our bodies. If we have any chance of completely expunging these people. Like, this is it. We're ground zero. We are ground zero. And the rest of the world is watching this country. And so far, I'm not sure we've done a really good job of living up to our end of the bargain for the rest of the world. And you can take that any way you want. I know how I am interpreting that. So Mars is going direct. Get ready. Get your Mars on. I wanted to look at some astrology for the week ahead. Let's check this out. Let's look at the chart of the moment. I think it's for this area. I think it's for Fredericksburg. Kerrville. Kerrville. Chart of the moment, Kerrville. Okay, here we go. This is where we are. Speaking of Mars, look at that. High noon. Bang. Bang on. Right on the midheaven. What are we talking about? We're talking about Mars. And here we have the inconjunct with Scorpio. Oh, I love, I know inconjuncts, also known as the quincunx, are bedeviling for people. I get off on the inconjunct. I think the inconjunct is really interesting. It's like an enigma, or it's like a riddle to be solved. So here we are, second decan Scorpio. So we're in the Piscean decan. That's interesting. Very interesting. So in 3 days, the sun will move into the final decan of Scorpio, and that's the Cancerian decan, and that has to do with the home, and that has to do with nurturing, and that has to do with protecting. And right now, it's in the miasma of Pisces. I think the middle degree of Scorpio is the most addictive. The middle decan, or the second decan of Scorpio, is the most addictive decan of Scorpio, or poses the greatest challenges when it comes to addiction. Okay. So what is an inconjunct? Well, let's go over it again. It is an angle that's 150 degrees with no more than a 3-degree orb between this body and this body. Okay. So we have a difference of 2 degrees here, qualifies as an inconjunct. Now, what's interesting about this inconjunct is the fact that normally Aries and normally the two planets have really nothing to do with each other. So, for instance, Leo and Saturn, they don't really have anything to do with each other. Although, kind of. Like when you're young and you're a kid, your father's like Leo. Why? Because he's playful and, plays peekaboo with you and, gets into being a kid again, right? So the father is like the son when he's younger. But as the son gets older, the father becomes more like Saturn and becomes more strict and has to lay down rules, the whole Saturn trip, right? So Leo and Capricorn, kind of, somewhat, but beyond that, no. Now, Mars and Scorpio, they do, because Scorpio was originally ruled by Mars. So it's an interesting kind of inconjunct. So Mars is the old ruler of Scorpio. So there is a connection, and yet there is no connection, right? So here we have this broken path right now, the inconjunct, and the sun being the identity and transformation. And how do we integrate Mars into this idea of not only personal transformation, but cultural transformation as well? So this is the enigma. This is the riddle. And over the next 3 days, Mars is going to move closer into the inconjunct with the sun. I think it could also look very much like senseless violence. And I saw something tonight that it blew my mind. And it was very, very disturbing. And we've had no shortage of disturbing images over the last 6 months. But to me, this one was really disturbing. And I'm not going to play it for you, but I'll describe it. It was a Biden rally. And I think it was in Los Angeles. And there was a woman, and she had a mask on, and she was talking with this guy, and this guy was so-called black African American male. I don't know what his story was. I don't know what his scene was, but he was not happy with this woman who was so-called white. Obviously, since it's a Biden thing, more than likely a liberal, and she's kind of, giving him some attitude and telling him, what the score is, and he just starts wailing on her. And I mean wailing on her. I mean, I don't know what triggered that. I don't know if he was angry because she was white and a liberal. I don't know if he was angry because she was white, liberal, and a woman. I don't know what was going on there, but it was incredibly violent. And then the next thing you know, you've got these cops taking him down. And there's this dingbat who's like leading the event. She's like, give them some space. Give them some space. You gotta be kidding me. And then, and she's speaking to the microphone. Oh, so are we going to arrest a black man now on this day? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, this guy just went freaking Mike Tyson on this woman. And now she's going to put the burden of guilt on the two guys that managed to subdue this guy, and basically say, oh, okay, on this day, this great day, this momentous day, we're going to arrest a black man. I'm like, to me, there's your Sun Mars inconjunct right there. Boom. Like what the fuck? How does that happen? What's that all about? And it gets into this idea of needless and senseless violence. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. And it's going to be moving forward here over the next couple of days. So by the time we hit Wednesday, Thursday, and even a little bit beyond as it begins to separate, we're still going to be in that inconjunct. So this inconjunct is going to happen from 15 to 19, roughly 20. 5 degrees of Mars, 2 days? 2 days, with about 2.5 days for Mars. Almost 3 days. I think it's about 3 days for Mars. And so we've got roughly the next 2 weeks. So this gets us into Mars direct. Wow. So we are in a heavy Mars phase, especially with the inconjunct with Scorpio. Now the sun will move. The sun won't stay there. Tomorrow the sun will be at 18, so it'll begin to move away a little bit. But I think the next couple of days, this is where the stage is really being set. Really being set. Right here. Right there. Mars is trining the moon. There's a lot of passion and energy out there, obviously. And here we go. Mars coming in at 20, squaring Pluto, squaring Saturn. I'm telling you, man, things are going to get hot. They're going to get hot over the course of the next 10 days. So you got to factor that in. You have to factor this in. So right now you have people that are headed to Washington, D.C. And I said this, I think it was Friday. I said there's going to be huge crowds around the Capitol. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Trump supporters or people on the right, people on the left. The left is already there, apparently, or you're going to figure out it's going to be huge. You're going to have, I think, hundreds of thousands of people descending on Washington, D.C. One, to either protect Trump, or two, to get Trump out. And if I was Trump, I would not be in the fucking White House. Let me tell you that right now. Right now. You get off on quincunxes. Do not like. Somebody's telling. I like the mystery of the quincunx. That's what I like about it. Even the word quincunx. Anyway, we got another one. It's the moon. That's moving fast. That's moving quickly. So we don't have to worry about that too much. But this one, this Mars square, I'm telling you right now, you guys have got to stay cool. You got to stay cool. But man, you got to put your head in the swivel. You got to practice situational awareness. This is very important. Very, very important. And I will say this. Look, there's going to come a time where either the military is going to intervene or you're going to have to figure out how you're either going to stand your ground or how to deal with this crisis and conflict that I think is headed in our direction. You have to figure that out. And the sooner you do that, whatever I think it's better to like try to wrap your head around it versus just sitting there and I'll deal with it when it comes. You don't want to worry about it, but you just think about it. Like, what happens? Like, I don't know where you live. You should probably figure out what's around you, who's around you. You should take stock of where you are. If you haven't done that in the last 4 or 5 months anyway, you better get cooking. You better get cooking. But if you need to leave and get out of your area, you should probably figure that out too. And what you'll need to do in order to do that, where you're going to need to go if that's the case, or how much you'll need. I've been hearing rumblings of trucker strikes. Now they're limiting people to 2 things of paper towel and 2 things of toilet paper. Okay, so you got to. These are not normal times. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to break the news to you. We are at war. We've been at war. We've been at war for a while. The war started really in earnest when Trump was elected. That's when the war started, and we're in it. So I am not looking forward to any war. Trust me, I'm not a warmonger. But if you don't understand that, then you are not going to be prepared. You just won't be prepared. So you better wrap your head around it because Mars is coming to town right there. And on the 15th, it goes direct. And that's not that far away. Tomorrow is what? Tomorrow's the, let's see, today is the 9th. Tomorrow's the 10th. Let's see, today's the 8th. Tomorrow's the 9th. So the 10th is Tuesday, right? So it's 5 days from Tuesday. So we're talking Sunday. So, yeah, 7 days from today, 15th. Bang. We'll have a lot to talk about. Hopefully the internet will be on and we'll be able to communicate and converse and see where we are with all this. I'm not sure how much more I have to say about the situation. We know it's flammable. We know it's volatile. And there's big stakes here, really big stakes. And it's not just this country. It is the entire world. It's all right here, right now. And by the way, if you are in another part of the world, if you're in a place like England or you're in a place like Spain or Italy or Australia, you've got your own challenges. You have a different kind of challenge than we do. And I appreciate and respect your challenge. And don't give up. Please do not give up. Do not give up. So I wanted to do something tonight before I get out of here. There's a listener of the show, and I'll come back in the chat. We'll talk, and you guys can ask me questions or whatever. We'll shoot the shit for a bit. But there's a person who follows my show, and she heard that I had a bad back. I was having some issues, and she just reached out to me, and she said, "I'd like to help you." And I'm like, great. If somebody says they want to help me, I'm open to it. So she says, well, I'm a healer and I do energy healing. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? What should I do? Well, meet me at such and such a time on Zoom. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. So I did this, and she spent about 2.5 hours really working with me. And her name is Bridie, Bridie. And I just something happened, and I remember that night sleeping really, really well, really, really, really well. I slept fantastic, and then some things began to happen with my back that were very positive. Some of it was attitudinal, and some of it was kind of actual things that were connected to my back. So I told Bridie that I would actually play some of her video. I asked her, she said she's okay with that. So I wanted to give you guys kind of just a taste of the intensity of this healing thing I had. And if you're interested in working with her, you can go find her on LinkedIn. But I want to show you this, and I got her permission because I thought it was really cool. Really cool. So you start the week out, by the way, tomorrow with the moon in Virgo. That means take care of yourself. All right, so let me get into my files here. Let me find it. And then where do we go here? Hold on. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to shrink this screen a little bit. Let me get into my files. I just have to find the right file. I don't really have it set up. But this shouldn't be that hard. Difficult. There we go. Okay, where are we? Yes. Here we go. All right. So I've got the video up here. And I just wanted, because so I want to get some of the basic stuff out of the way, like pleasantries. And give me 1 second here. Do this. Okay, so all right, so she uses a pendulum and a dowsing technique, and I just want you to kind of see what she's doing and pick up on the intensity of this thing. Okay, here we go. So this is Bridie Machado Fallon, and this is her kind of picking up on one of my maladies and then doing this kind of almost energetic kind of laser beam thing. Check this out. Okay, I was just told we can't hear this. Hold on. I thought I could, give me 1 second. I thought I had the link on for sound. So let me try it again. Thank you, Diana. All right, hold on. So share audio, I hit share audio, got the app, right? So I'm not sure. how to do this, but let's try it again. Because I can hear it, that's for damn sure. Let me just make sure. Hold on. Try one more time. I'm going to move forward just a little bit. Right here. Let's try this.
$24, $23.
Okay, I'm just rewiring this because I don't think you guys can hear it, but it's really, you got to hear this. Hold on. So I just have to change the audio a little bit. Okay, hold on. Microphone. I'll try it. Let me see if we can get this in there. Let's try this. Hold on. Here we go. Microphone. Here, let's do that. All right, here we go. I think we got it. Okay, here we go. All right, one more time. This should be better. Hold on. All right.
22. Okay. Say that happened when you were 22. So you'll have to do a lot of thinking once you go back. Let's get rid of all this. I'm going to superground your will, free will, strengthen it, remove each aspect. I'm going to do them one by one because two of them I need to do something different with them. So I'm going to do them one by one. We'll be very thorough and then we'll heal your will, free will. Okay, let's go. So, superground Robert's will, free will to source, immediately true, source true. Superground Robert's will, free will to source, immediately true, source true. Superground Robert's will, free will to source, immediately true, source true. In Robert's will, free will, holographic projection, false. Leave immediately, go to ether, do not ever return. In Robert's will, free will, holographic projection, false. Leave immediately, go to ether, do not ever return. In Robert's will, free will, holographic projection, false. Leave immediately, go to ether, do not ever return. In Robert's will, free will, undo, unsay, and break all manifestations of witchcraft immediately true. In Robert's will, free will, undo, unsay, and break all manifestations of witchcraft immediately true. In Robert's will, free will, undo, unsay, and break all manifestations of witchcraft immediately true. In Robert's will, free will, undo, unsay, and break all witchcraft spells immediately true. In Robert's will, free will, undo, unsay, and break all witchcraft spells immediately true. In Robert's will, free will, undo, unsay, and break all witchcraft spells immediately true. In Robert's will, free will, all manifestations of witchcraft, all witchcraft spells, false. Leave, immediately go to ether, do not ever, ever return. In Robert's will, free will, all manifestations of witchcraft, all witchcraft spells, false. Leave, go to ether immediately, do not ever, ever return. In Robert's will, free will, all manifestations of witchcraft, all witchcraft spells, false. Leave, go to ether, do not ever, ever return. In Robert's will, free will, used for sacrifice, false. Go to ether, immediately, do not return ever. In Robert's will, free will, used for sacrifice, false. Go to ether immediately, do not ever, ever return.
Okay, so that's just a taste of that, okay? So this went on for like 2 hours, and she continued to drill down into all these various sort of, bodies and things that were hanging out for a long time. And I was really blown away. And the thing that she had is called a Pisces vesica. And it was really the intensity and sort of the thoroughness of that experience, which really blew my mind. So, I asked her if she wanted to come on the show and kind of talk about what she does. And she's, really not into that. She's not a public person. She doesn't advertise. She does have clients. But I thought I would help her out and show you guys a little bit about what she does. And I think you can, let's see if we can go there. 1 sec. And let me just do this here. See if I can find somebody. My network. Let's see, messages. Let me go here. Yep, here we go. So if you want to get in touch with Bridie, you can do it over here at LinkedIn. I'll show you her LinkedIn page. And if you're interested in her work, what she does, maybe working with her on the healing side of things, there you go. There she is, true quantum healing practitioner, freelance. And she's in Westbridge for England, United Kingdom, Nottingham Forest. So there you go. Those are my people, whatever. Anyway, Bridie, there you go. There's her page. Bridie Fallon Machado, #1. All right. So Bridie, thank you for working with me. If you guys have any interest in that, go check her out. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, hey, Claire. How is Steve doing? And I haven't been on my email lately. I hope he's doing okay, by the way. What's wrong with Rosie? There's nothing wrong with Rosie. She's got catitude. Yeah, Kevin, you may want to check that out. What does Steve say? See if she'll do one on Rosie, too. I know, right? I know. Rosie didn't show up. I think Rosie could have a little session, though. Steve is out of the ice. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Excellent. What's wrong with Rosie? She's got catitude, man. She's got catitude. Anyway, go check Bridie out. See if if there's a fit there. Check her out. Talk with her. And I think a very, very, very powerful healer. So that's it for tonight. Maybe she should do one for, I don't know, Trump. Oh, there was something I wanted to show you about Biden before I split. Oh, Alex Trebek passed away. He did. Interesting. He hung out for a long time, and he was not well. He's 80 years old. There's this thing with Biden. I got to show it to you. The man who isn't there. Now, remember, Tucker Carlson said the other night that who is Joe Biden? He said that Joe Biden was a hologram. Maybe Tucker Carlson was perhaps more literal than metaphoric. I'm going to show you. Let's see. Here we go. This is really bizarre. This is, and again, now I want you to.
You know what?
Hold on. I'm not sure. Okay, so he's giving. I think this is his latest speech. But something weird happens here. Something very strange happens here. There's been all kinds of weird anomalies with stuff. Check this out. This is strange. Watch this.
You know what? When I went to Gettysburg to make that speech, Abraham Lincoln said a house divided cannot stand. Well, a nation divided cannot stand. I was reminded of that earlier this week. Ladies and
Delete.
What the hell is that? That is really weird. That is really strange. I wish I could slow this thing down. I'll play it again.
You know what? When I went to Gettysburg to make that speech, Abraham Lincoln said a house divided cannot stand. Well, a nation divided cannot stand. I was reminded of that earlier this week. Ladies and
What the hell is that? Did you see that? Watch his face. Watch his face here. Like, this guy is glitching out. Watch. Oh, this is so weird. This is really weird. Now, they think it's some kind of an editing thing. I don't think so. There's something else going on here.
Delete.
That is a news. That's a news anchor. That is a news reporter. This is very odd.
cannot stand. I was reminded of that earlier this week. Ladies and
Delete.
Video alarmed. What is this all about? She's like slightly uncomfortable there. I'm telling you, we have so much high strange going on right now. And Tucker is basically saying that he's a hologram. I wonder if he's being literal, literally a hologram. All right, I'm out of here. Deep fakes. Yep, absolutely. Totally prefab. Yep. Weird. The whole thing is weird. Very weird. I don't know who said that. I said him. I don't know. And then the reporter shows up like, the script is running out of reality. All right. I'll be back tomorrow, though, with another version of the script, or at least how I interpret it. Thank you for everybody, Chatlandia. You're the best. I am doing astrological readings. If you're into relocation, if you want help with your chart, come over to robertphoenix.com. I'm still doing that. And I got readings this week. It's what I do. I do other things. And tomorrow I'll be on 50 Minutes of Flame, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. That's on the other channel. If you like the show, hit the thumbs up and pass it along to your friends. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to see what's possible. We're in it now, folks. We're in it now. Strap it up. Head on a swivel. Stay strong. Keep the faith. Love you. Bye for now.